So not only has a $603 billion bank quietly began buying Bitcoin, but we've actually had a second state pension fund in America has also began buying Bitcoin. And we're also going to be having a look today at why 400,000 Bitcoin were just accumulated by this smart money. And that, of course, is the long-term holders. So today, we're going to be bringing you up to speed on all of the bullish developments that have quietly occurred this week that I think have gone unnoticed. While everybody was focused with the Bank of Japan, Bitcoin has quietly popped its head back up to $60,000 a coin. So let's begin with the big news. The big news is that Wells Fargo has been quietly buying some Bitcoin. We put out this article here on the bitcoinnews.com website. And as you can see, in a 13F filing in May, Wells Fargo quietly disclosed that it had invested $141,000 into Grayscale's Bitcoin ETF. At the bottom of this article, we can see Wells Fargo's investment in Bitcoin ETFs is a landmark decision that will likely have far-reaching implications for the financial industry. So why do we think it's going to have far-reaching implications for the financial industry? Well, it all has to do with what I've got on screen right here. And that is the fact that Wells Fargo is a $603 billion giant. This is how many assets under management the bank has. It is enormous. It is in the top 50 biggest banks in the entire world. Okay, so now that we have Wells Fargo also quietly appearing to copy BlackRock's Bitcoin strategy, things are getting pretty interesting here. Things are getting very, very interesting here. We jump back on over to this website. We can see here, Wells Fargo is one of America's oldest and most prestigious financial institutions, and they are now offering the Bitcoin ETFs to its clients. For a financial giant like Wells Fargo to step into this space, it signals a profound shift in how institutional investors view Bitcoin's potential. But it isn't only institutional investors. I don't know, can we call a pension fund an institutional investor? What we can call them is a large asset allocator, a very large asset allocator. And we can see here, the Jersey City Pension Fund is also invested in Bitcoin ETFs, okay? Who remembers what happened earlier in the year? The first big pension fund to invest into these Bitcoin ETFs was, of course, the Wisconsin US pension fund. This is the, what was it, ninth largest pension fund in America, and they bought a lazy $160 million worth of Bitcoin for their pension fund. And they said they actually wanted to 10x that allocation into Bitcoin. And it appears as if maybe, just maybe, other pension funds are also paying attention to what the ninth largest US pension fund is actually doing. So we can see here, on July 25th, Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop announced that the city's pension fund would allocate a percentage of its assets to Bitcoin ETFs. This decision follows a similar move by the Wisconsin pension fund earlier in the year, okay? So this guy has been the mayor, so to say, since 2013. So he's been there for 11 years. So I think that's interesting. And we can see here, while the exact percentage of the fund to be allocated to Bitcoin ETFs has not been specified, Fulop indicated it would be similar to the 2% allocation made by the Wisconsin pension fund earlier in the year. Have a think about that for a minute. What happens if every pension fund around the world wants to get a 2% allocation to Bitcoin? All of a sudden, things are getting pretty interesting, don't you think, guys? I think things are getting very, very interesting. In a live stream a little while ago, we actually ran the numbers behind one of BlackRock's portfolio allocations. And we said, look, BlackRock's suggesting that a 30% allocation to Bitcoin is not unreasonable. That was the exact words from a BlackRock analyst and quant. And we ran the numbers and we showed you guys what would potentially happen if the entire world and all of the money managers wanted to copy BlackRock and allocate a 30% allocation of all of their funds into Bitcoin. And we showed you that 0.1 Bitcoin would quickly become generational wealth because that would actually send Bitcoin to $48 million a coin, as shown by this little video here that we did a few months ago. I might pop that in the live chat for you guys to check out if you want to get bullish this Friday afternoon. Happy Friday to everyone tuning in, by the way. But again, this is how trends begin. Okay, again, what happens if all of these pension funds want a 2% allocation to Bitcoin? All of a sudden, things are going to change very, very quickly. Okay, it becomes a trend. Okay, I believe I actually have a quote for you guys. We can see here, when one person adopts a trend, it's just an action. It's just a random outlier action. But if two, maybe it becomes a coincidence. We have two pension funds adopting Bitcoin in America right now. Sure, we could write that off as a coincidence. The mainstream media will. The mainstream media will say these are just irresponsible asset allocators. They're speculating on volatile assets like Bitcoin. All right, two can just be written off as a trend, but three, yeah, I'm not so sure. If we do see that next pension fund in America FOMO into Bitcoin, it would suggest that maybe, just maybe, we have a trend of big buys into the Bitcoin space. The reason we're looking at pension funds is because they are typically one of the safest investors around the world. Okay, they're investing for people's retirement funds. They have to be very safe, very prudent with what they do. Remember early in the year, we actually looked at why Japan's $1.7 trillion pension fund is quote unquote investigating Bitcoin for diversification strategies away from the Japanese yen. Again, ask yourself, if they're announcing this publicly, you really think that the big boys in charge of what that $1.7 trillion pension fund in Japan is doing don't quietly have a bag of Bitcoin? I think you're crazy if you think they don't. Now, I want to talk a little bit more because we're talking about the fact that maybe we're about to see a trend in pension funds gaining interest to Bitcoin. We know we already have a trend in regards to public companies. For a very long time, we only really had companies like MicroStrategy. Sure, Tesla did a little bit of Bitcoin in early 2021 when Elon Musk bought about $1.5 billion for, was it Tesla? And he also bought some Bitcoin for SpaceX, his private company. And then we obviously had Square, CEO Jack Dorsey bought a little bit of Bitcoin for their company, but we haven't really seen let's say an acceleration in that trend. There's been so little public companies that you could have just written it off as a coincidence, okay? But I think earlier this year, things started to change in the public corporation space. We saw Semler Scientific, $200 million market cap company FOMO into Bitcoin. Metaplanet, their stock price has been going absolutely bananas right now because they too, publicly traded company in Japan, have been buying aggressively. They've been buying a lot of Bitcoin over the past, 3 to 4 months. They've been like MicroStrategy. They've just been dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin. I'm trying to pull up a chart. I apologize if I look a little bit distracted. I didn't plan on showing you guys the Metaplanet chart, but boy, that's a seesaw, that is. So this here is the chart of Metaplanet. This is the stock price of the publicly traded Japanese company who began buying Bitcoin earlier in the year. I think if we were to maybe point an arrow on the chart where they began buying Bitcoin, you could probably tell where it was. It was all the way down here when their stock price was maybe at around 15. Looks like they had a stock split. All their price has gone absolutely bananas. Okay, so their stock price has gone from 200 to 1200, so that's a 6x. Think about that, just a lazy 6x, not bad. But again, Semler Scientific, Metaplanet, DeFi Technologies, Bitcoin Depot. We also have another funnily Boya, I can't pronounce, Boya? Is that the name of the other publicly traded company in Europe who've also adopted Bitcoin? So again, that's 5 new public corporations adopting Bitcoin in 2024. That's a trend. That is no longer a coincidence, okay? MicroStrategy is no longer alone. Are we about to see a trend in public corporations and pension funds getting into Bitcoin? Potentially. And again, this would really signal a shift. I really love this video here. This is producer Pam actually made this one. But as El Salvador was dancing alone on the hill for a very long time. Maybe, just maybe, Javier Milei may join him soon and maybe welcome Bitcoin as legal tender in Argentina. He's already deregulated Bitcoin in Argentina. He's already confirmed it can be used to settle financial contracts in Argentina. Not quite legal tender, but again, maybe we're going to start to see a trend in nation states also adopting Bitcoin. Again, guys, I'm